Well, hello and welcome to another episode and show of Real Estate Investing with Jay Conner. I'm Jay Conner, your host in the Private Money Authority. And if this is your first time tuning in, I want to give you a very, very special welcome. Here we talk about all things real estate investing, how to find the hot deals, how to do commercial deals, self-storage, land, single-family houses, apartments, you name it, we talk about it all. And as you know, if you've been tuning in, I have amazing guests that have joined me here on the show. Today is no different. But before I bring my guest on, I've got a free online class for all of my audience to tune into. And it's on how to get funding for your deals, regardless, not relying on your local bank or mortgage companies. When I first started investing in 2003 into single family houses and flipping, I relied on the local banks, but in 2009, I got cut off with no notice. And I was introduced to this wonderful world of private money. Since that time, I have not missed out on a deal for not having the money. So check out this website, this URL after the show, and I will show you how to get funding for your deals without relying on local banks or mortgage companies. You can go on over to www.jayconner.com/money podcast and get that free training. That's www.jayconner.com/money podcast. Well, today we're going to be talking about here on the show how to find the hot, motivated sellers that you can do business with. So, you know, whether you are a wholesaler and you're assigning contracts or if you're flipping houses, it doesn't really matter what you're doing in real estate investing, particularly in single family houses. I know that you are looking for ways to find the motivated sellers, the hot deals to find. And most of these deals, as you know, today we find are off market. They're not in the multiple listing service. So today we're talking about not relying on the multiple listing service, but actually being in charge of your own destiny and locating motivated sellers. So what in the world am I talking about? Yes, believe it or not, folks, the United States Postal Service is still open and is still working. The Postal Service has not closed. For all of you that are out there just relying on, you know, the internet, well, this is a wake-up call. In fact, I don't know a better time than right now to be taking advantage of the direct mail service for the United States Postal Service, because so much of your competition has gone away and has gone over actually to the internet. So my guest today, my friend and fellow mastermind member, is Ryan Dixon, and Ryan is with REIprintmail.com. So Ryan, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks, Jay. Thanks for the invite. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So I just answered the question, is direct mail dead? But I want you to give your own data and your own, you know, backup information so this audience just isn't relying on me. So how do you know direct mail is still working and is not dead today?
Well, you know, the short answer is we're breaking records every year. We're the fastest growing REI print house in the United States right now. And this last year was no different, just smashed through all the records. So we know that we've got, you know, a lot of return customers. And we think that that is because the internet, the cold calling, text blasting, not to mention the legal concerns with a lot of it. But not only that, it's getting oversaturated with a lot of people that didn't necessarily have a budget. So they, you know, flow into those buckets. And then when they do that, it becomes less effective. And then more people switch over to mail. They realize that it is still effective because you can't unsubscribe your mailbox, and you're not going to be able to. So the point is, even when you're throwing away mail, you still have to look at it to throw it away. So at a certain point, you have a few seconds to catch their attention. That's what we're good at. We're good at creating unique mail. We've invented some of the coolest things in the industry to grab that attention and just help get past the trash can. But just our growth rate and our constant return of our really large customers that have been with us for a very long time. We're a 27-year-old company. Just proves that mail isn't dead, and we're actually expecting a fantastic year.
So before we dive in on talking about, what do you think the hottest lists are they're working today and what's getting the best response and et cetera, how about give my audience an overview of exactly what are the services and what does reiprintmail.com do? And then what makes you different?
Sure. So, we're a direct mail house that we really target and work really well with real estate investors because we're a real estate investor owned company. President of our company is a real estate investor. I'm a real estate investor. Numerous other people and our direct mail coaches, most of them are real estate investors. The fact is that as a real estate investor owned company, we just get it. We understand it. We want our own deals. And so using mail to do that it's just in our nature. And so what we do that's different than everybody else is direct mail coaching. So we figured out a long time ago, especially when you're a larger real estate investor and you're spending some serious money on your marketing, that you really need somebody to hold your hand and guide you through what the best practices are in the industry. And it's important to follow the best practices. And so if we can coach our customers, they get better results. If they get better results, then they come back. And when they love us and come back, then they bring other people with them. And so we figured that out a long time ago, and it's just been an explosive results ever since we really took up that mantra. So besides that, what we invent are products. We invented Accutext mailers, which is a street view product. So we put a picture of the house directly on the mail piece. We also put a sky view picture. We're the only company that does that. A sky view picture of the neighborhood with one of those Google map dots right on top of the house. That goes on the mail piece too, if you want it to. That's just one or two of the bells and whistles. We recently created Accutext, which is basically a reverse texting feature. It's really interesting. We put on a mail piece a short code that has, let's say you got a picture of your house on there. It already gets the attention, but it says, is this your house? I want to buy it. Text ABCD to 1234 to get a fair cash offer, or call and you got your tracking number. Well, if somebody chooses to text that short code, two things happen. One, the prospect gets a personalized text message from you stating their name, stating that you're going to call them and that you're going to reach out. The next thing that happens is the marketer gets a single neat file emailed to them with the first name, last name, property address, mailing address, and cell phone number you just captured of that prospect, all in one neat file that can be uploaded directly into a CRM. So it makes it really simple. Not only that, they're staring at their phone when they did it. So you could call them right away while they're engaged, and you can walk them through the sales process immediately. And if they don't answer, you've got their cell phone. You can try again. You're generally going to be able to get a hold of them. So that's called Accutext. We invented that. That's on about 80% of everything we sell. It's a very popular product. And, just our uniqueness of our mail pieces, all of them can be seen at reiprintmail.com. Make sure and check out self-mailers as well, not just letters and postcards. They're great, but there is an area called self-mailers that is really interesting and is getting some of the highest response rates we see in all of our mail pieces. That's probably what sets us apart besides our direct mail coaching.
Well, I love the Accutext product that you've got there, because with that being the call to action, that's how people communicate today. They don't want to pick up the phone and call anybody. They for sure don't want you calling, because they're not going to answer the phone and not recognize a phone number. So I would anticipate that with the call to action being by texting, that the response rate is definitely higher than having a call to action of just a phone number. Have you run any stats since you started offering that product as to how much greater your response rate is since the call to action is to text versus calling?
So I can't speak for all of the other direct mail coaches on staff. Me personally, I see that anywhere from 20 to 30% of the leads that, let's say, come in over the course of a campaign, 20 to 30% of those are usually attributed to that reverse texting function. And an interesting point as well is that when they text that short code, they have now legally opted in. So to our knowledge, that is really the only legal opt-in that we've seen in this industry. You know, cold calling has always been a gray area, text blasting, all that, RVMs, they're all ringless voicemail. You know, you've got a lot of gray area with all that. This isn't gray. This is black and white. They've opted in when they've texted that code, allowing you to reach out to them in a legal fashion, which is pretty neat.
Right. Now, why is it called reverse texting or reverse lookup?
Well, that's something that we named it because really what you're doing is you're sending messages out to the people that really initially sent the mail in the first place. So it is almost a reverse texting function, but we thought it kind of described it well, not to mention it's just a pretty cool name.
Right. So let's make sure we understand. So they get a mailer, whether it's a postcard, letter, whatever, they get a mailer. The call to action is for them to text a particular number. Mm-hmm. So when they text, obviously, so that email automatically goes out. The marketer's got a fresh lead. Mm-hmm. But do you have a reverse lookup option to where the software is saying this is who we think the name of this person is?
Well, so actually, when you provide a list to me, or when I provide a list to you, let's say you buy a list from us, or you go buy a list from somewhere else, and you use that for your mailing. Generally, you have a first name, a last name, a property address, and a mailing address. What our software is doing here is it's appending that list with a short code. So if you give me 10,000 lines of addresses, I'm going to append it with 10,000 different short codes. When the software sees that short code was typed in, it basically just sends you a record and says, hey, you know, John Smith at 1422 Floorville Lane just sent this text message, and this is the cell phone he sent it from. It's pretty simple, but there's actually nothing out there like it. But at the same time, they're opting in. At the same time, you get a real-time lead. And at the same time, you're able to reach out to them and really strike up a conversation immediately. So it's very unique.
I love it. I love it. So the question is, what are you seeing today as being some of the top types of lists that are working the best to mail to? And is it market specific?
It is market specific to a certain extent. You know, generally people decide whether they are better at absentee or owner occupied, and that becomes kind of the base of your list. So you're either doing absentee, both in and out of state absentee, or you're doing owner occupied. And then the rest of it is made up of more what I call time decay lists, right? So vacants and probates and notice of defaults, tax delinquents, things like that. And so the majority of my clients live their lives one quarter at a time, and they'll start with that list. And then at the end of that quarter, we take out the people that have raised their hands, that they've cut deals with, the people that weren't interested, maybe a bad zip code that wasn't working out, the time decay lists that are no longer maybe relevant. And then we just add in fresh data, and then we start the process all over again. But, you know, it's a very daunting process. And that's why, you know, when you have somebody like me who walks you through the whole process, we scrub your list, we run them through the national change of address, we run them through the CAS systems, we dedupe them. If you need us to stack them, we can do that for you. So there's a lot of things that need to be done, which can just be really daunting. And frankly, people have a tendency to not use best practices because of situations like that, especially when they're a small business owner or a one-man show or only have a few people. So it really helps having somebody like us kind of walk you through that whole process and say, here's the best practices, here's what we're going to do, and this is how simple we're going to make it.
Yeah. When you're coaching, and I love that about your company, to where, you know, you're one of the coaches at reiprintmail.com. When you're coaching a client, what are the ways that you coach your client to measure and track as mail is going out, what's working and what's not working?
So, generally you use some kind of a phone number, a tracking number, a call rail number. If you're using our text function, if you're using Accutext, we can track the text messages. We can even add a link to that response text that goes to the prospect, and if they click a link, we can track how many link clicks there were. So we can help track those KPIs. But generally, that's where about we stop, is those lines of data. Now then, when they say, okay, well, what do we do to move forward? Well, we need to know how many deals you close. So they're responsible of giving us some information, but we kind of walk them through what they're going to need to track, like how many deals, how many phone calls, how many tire kickers, how many text messages, of that, what kind of deals did we do? Were a lot of them subject twos? And if you like subject twos, we need to probably go after a lower equity list to try to shake more of those loose. And we start lending ourselves to what they're good at. And so it changes with every client depending on what they are good at, but ultimately it's the same goal, just more deals. And we do that by tracking all these different KPIs alongside of them.
And just to make sure everybody understands, tell people what a KPI is.
So it's a key performance indicator. And generally that from a marketing standpoint, that's how many phone calls you get. That's how many text messages you get. And how many people you originally sent all the mail to, or whatever marketing channel you're using. If you know that, and then you know how many deals are in your pipeline, and then eventually you know how many you closed, then you really have all of the information you need to decide, is this broken? If it is, how do we fix it? If not, let's continue, and how do we improve on it?
I love it. So when you are coaching a client and you're helping them build and create, say, a quarterly campaign, are you coaching and suggesting sequential mailing to the same list?
Yes, generally multiple. I mean, there's no great answer for the general answer is yes. The fact is there's a lot of studies out there. There's some people say 6 touches, 12 touches. I've seen a study for 30 touches. Fact is there's no study that says 1 touch. We know we need to touch the list multiple times. The person needs to see our mailing piece multiple times to really take advantage of that list. And the more times they see it, generally, the higher probability rate they are to call you. At the same time, you do need to watch when a list stops producing. You need to make a decision. It's nice to have someone like me to bounce that off of. Hey, this is my results. What should we do? And so, but generally, I hit the same list 3 times per quarter, once a month. If we're going to be aggressive, we'll go 4 times in that quarter. We'll do it every 3 weeks.
I got you. What kind of process do you have in place for when people, respond to the Accutext, or they pick up the phone and call, to get them deleted from mailing out any more mailers since they've already responded?
That's actually a product we're working on right now to streamline it. So eventually, the REI print mail back office is eventually going to be able to have that ability to help us remove people from the list. Right now, what our clients are doing is they just keep a running list of a do not mail list, basically. And when they send us their new mailing list, they just send us their do not mail list, and then we dedupe against it and make sure that those aren't in there. And right now, that's really the only way to do that we know of. There is, and it's the same with return mail. So you gotta get those addresses out of there. And to do that, generally, you want to get them into an Excel sheet and then let us handle the rest.
There you go. So it's important to have somebody on the team that is getting the return mail, getting the responses, and getting that Excel spreadsheet emailed into you all before the next mailer goes out the following month, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about for a moment budgeting. So I'm sure you have different size clients all over the nation, some smaller budgets, some, huge budgets mailing out thousands of pieces a month. But if you've got a new real estate investor that's just starting out, really what's the smallest sample size, not sample size, but what's the smallest number of mailers that need to be going out a month to really make it a worthwhile campaign?
So good question. And it does depend market to market. And actually it depends on the saturation of your market. So if you're in a really rural area, you can consider yourself very lucky that you can send out a much smaller amount of mail to get a deal. Generally, keeping our mail in probable amounts to get a deal per mailing in our area is incredibly important. It's one of the three main rules: quantity, consistency, and uniqueness. And so what we say by quantity is our probability amount. So if this were a highly saturated area, let's say New York City, it may take 6,000 pieces to equal one deal. Whereas if it were a rural area, Chattanooga, Tennessee, where it might take 1,500 to 2,000 pieces. So that's a bit of a loaded question. It all really depends on the area. Generally, you don't want to go under 1,000 pieces, because if we got to remember, 1% is pretty much the standard for response rate. And if it's 1%, if we send 1,000 pieces, we're going to get 10 phone calls. Generally, you need in between 20 and 30 phone calls to get one deal. As our saturation in our market increases, then the response rate goes down. So in California, in San Diego, Inland Empire, and places like that, we might see 0.25% as the standard. And so you'll have to do a lot more mail there to get one deal. Generally, though, in places like that, each deal is worth a lot more per deal when it comes to the average profit. So you see a trade about.
Yeah. Well, what I love about you and your company is it's one-stop shop when it comes to direct mail. You've got the list, to provide. You've got the turnkey services for, getting it out the door. And then, as important and probably more important, you've got the coaches on staff that are actually going to help somebody create their campaign. So that's just fantastic. Well, I know you've got a special deal and discount put together for my audience. Tell my folks about what you got for them.
Sure. So if you guys go to reiprintmail.com and coupon code J2020, you don't have to worry about capitalization, then you can get 10% off of your order. But even better, I'd like to just throw out, I'm a pretty simple guy. I throw out my cell phone everywhere I go. If there's any of your followers that want to talk about having some kind of a campaign, I'd like to just throw my cell phone out there. And so that's 314-458-6041. Again, my name's Ryan Dixon. If you want to have a talk about strategy and what it might take to be successful with mail in your area, happy to do it. Or you could just go to reiprintmail.com and you can start to fill out an order, and then somebody will end up reaching out to you. One of our direct mail coaches will, if you just put in some information there. That's one of the things we're really, really good at. But yeah.
That's excellent, Ryan. Thank you for offering that. Well, one last question before I let you go. There's bad direct mail campaigns and there's good direct mail campaigns. What makes a bad campaign? What makes a good campaign?
Well, so we've already kind of touched on quantity, and we've touched a little bit on uniqueness. You got to do what your competition isn't doing. And so, just doing the handwritten card nowadays is it's played out. It's not getting near as high of a response rate. So you have to be unique. But I got to say, probably the number one thing is probably being consistent. Mail has a compounding interest quality to it. The reason you can mail for a year and stop and then get deals for the next 6 months is because people take that piece of mail, they put it away in a drawer, and then they say, when it's time, I'm going to go call this number. Well, that doesn't happen with ringless voicemails and text messages and emails and other marketing avenues like that. So if you can stay consistent, and even if you are screwing it up, then ultimately the compounding interest factor comes back around and people will call, and definitely make your money off that direct mail campaign, but you got to be consistent. At the end, it's quantity, consistency, and unique.
That's perfect. Well, man, Ryan, I appreciate so much you taking the time to come on here and visit with me and my audience. And any final comments before we call this show a wrap?
No, that's it, buddy. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next event, whichever one we both end up at, and can't wait for that. And thank you for the time today.
Absolutely. So one more time, folks, that's www.reiprintmail.com. And you can save 10% by using the special code JAY2020 and save money there. Ryan's cell phone number, ringing right to him, is area code 314-458-6041. Or you can schedule a time to schedule an appointment at www.calendly.com/REI mail, MAIL. Well, there you have it, folks. I'm Jay Connor, the Private Money Authority, wishing you all the best. And here's to taking your real estate investing business to the next level. We'll see you on the next show. Bye for now.